The poorest people on the bottom are out of the question. Ha, ha. The moment he said that, the father of the person I was introduced to threw water on us. He also laughed mockingly at us, saying that we were being taken for a fool. Didn't that make us look a little poorer? Instead of stopping what her husband had done, his wife laughed along with him. My mother opened her mouth to say something to my parents. Don't you think so too? That's right. However, she closed her mouth when the topic was brought up. Instead, she said something that confirmed what my parents had said. Seeing them like that, my sister smiled. Seeing that smile made me shudder as I felt my sister's anger. I'll slap you on the 20 billion yen contract. The parents of my introduced partner were dumbfounded by my sister's words. However, they quickly went back to laughing mockingly. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to give you this. My sister said that and handed over a business card. The moment he checked the business card, the father of my introduced partner's face went blank. I'm Endo Aoi, 31 years old. I'm single and work from home. I have an older sister, Iori, who is 7 years older than me, and my parents. My parents were originally my uncle and aunt to my sister and me. Our real parents died in a traffic accident when I was still in elementary school. My sister, who was a high school student at the time, couldn't live alone, so I remember our relatives gathering at the funeral to discuss what to do with us. We won't take care of the trouble of leaving the children behind. They were originally against the marriage. Apparently, our parents got married despite opposition from those around them, and our relatives refused to take us in. Apparently, they were our only allies. My paternal grandparents were with us because they had been driving the same car as our parents at the time. That's why we were prepared to go to a facility. Our uncle, who was going to take us in, made this offer. When our relatives heard his words, they made fun of my father, but we ended up being taken in by my uncle and aunt. Don't worry about it. Don't be shy about anything. That's right. Tell us anything, quote. He spoke kindly to us, who had lost our real parents. However, at that time, my uncle and aunt were in their early 20s and had just started working. Yet, they suddenly found themselves living in poverty because they had taken in a high school student and an elementary school student. I could tell that they were just trying not to let us suffer in poverty. They prepared as much food as possible for us, but they only ate poor meals. Our clothes were always brand new, but theirs were worn for years. Furthermore, my uncle and aunt had dreams, but because of us, they had given them up. I decided not to go to college and instead got a job. I wanted to do my best for my family too. That's why my older sister, who was planning to go to college at the time, chose to work after graduating from high school. Thanks to my uncle and aunt and my older sister, I was able to go to college, and I can't thank them enough. I was surprised when they cried when I called my father Dad and Mom, but I loved my family so much. Years passed, and I was the only one worrying about work. Is there anything that could inspire me? Huh? It's my older sister. That's unusual. Then, I got a call from my older sister, who never called me. Surprised by the suddenness of it all, I answered the phone. Sorry for calling out so suddenly. How are you? Are you okay now? I'm fine and cooped up in my room. When I replied jokingly, my sister giggled. Then my sister asked if I could meet her now, and I agreed since there was no point in staying in my room. So we decided to meet at a nearby coffee shop. Sorry. Don't worry about calling her out so suddenly, it'll be a nice change of pace. I asked my sister, who arrived after me, about her children. My sister is married to a man named Saijoya and has 2 children. My brother-in-law is a really nice person, someone I respect. Apparently, he's looking after the children today. So why did you call me out today? Actually, I got a call from a relative saying that they want to arrange a meeting for you. Apparently, they heard that I'm single and contacted my sister to arrange a meeting. My sister told me excitedly that they've been contacting me so persistently that it's starting to affect her work. The first thing I thought when I heard that was that they're being pushy. I really hate my relatives. I still remember what we talked about at the funeral. They told us not to be untrustworthy with money and not to rely on them. And yet, when they heard that I had succeeded in my career, there were people who came to fawn over me. My maternal grandparents in particular wouldn't even look us in the eye at the funeral. Those grandpas must hate us. It can't be helped, I guess. I haven't seen my maternal grandparents since the funeral. They both died of long-term illness. It's okay to refuse. They just asked me to at least talk to them. My sister's face looked tired when she said that. She must have been acting as a buffer for me up until now, knowing that I didn't like her. Okay. I'll try to meet her as much as I can. When I said that, my sister's eyes widened in surprise. Are you sure? You don't have to push yourself. I'm not pushing myself too hard. Besides, I was just looking for some excitement. I said that and smiled at my sister. Seeing that, she finally smiled and said, "Okay, I'll tell you that." Still, my relatives really don't do anything bad. I racked my brains trying to figure out how to cut them off. After cutting off contact with my sister for a while, I went home and contacted my parents. My parents are currently living overseas. So my father wasn't sure if he would be able to attend the arranged meeting, but I told him that my sister was planning to attend. When my parents heard this, they apologized and told me that I didn't have to force myself to get married. I nodded and hung up the phone. Huh? It's my sister. Then my sister called again. Apparently, as soon as I contacted her to say yes, the other party immediately specified the date, time, and venue. The problem was the date. That day is my father's birthday, right? That's right. So I asked if we could do it on a different day, but they said no. As you would expect from a troublesome relative who introduced us, the other party also seems to be a difficult person. My sister told me in a tired voice that they had been pushing the conversation forward without listening to what I had to say. So we decided to visit our real parents' graves after the arranged meeting. Has it been 20 years already? After finishing the phone call, I remember the day my biological parents were in an accident. That day, my parents said they had something important to do, so they went out with my father's grandparents who had come to our house. I was sulking because I couldn't go, but my older sister, who was always busy with her studies and club activities, invited me to play a game with her, and I quickly cheered up. Yes. It's Endo. Huh? My parents? And while I was waiting happily at home, I learned about the accident from a phone call from the police. Another car rear-ended the car my father was driving. My father's car was pushed out by the rear-end collision and crashed into a utility pole, resulting in the accident. The car that caused the accident apparently fled the scene. At that time, dash cams were not yet widespread, and there were no surveillance cameras in the area, so the culprit who caused the accident was never found. A witness saw the moment of the accident, so he was able to prove that my biological parents were the victims. However, the witness was watching from a distance from the scene, so all he could tell was that it was a luxury car, and he didn't know the license plate number or who was driving it. In the end, the case remains unsolved. Sigh, I remembered something unpleasant. My biological parents, who had left with smiles on their faces, returned coldly. Thinking of such things, my mood sank deeply. Just as I was trying to change my mood, I suddenly became concerned about the important errand my biological parents had mentioned. My sister didn't know about that errand, and I didn't know where everyone had gone. I had to get over it quickly. If I keep worrying about it, I won't be able to reassure my father and the others. Thinking this, I sighed deeply and thought to myself. A few days passed, and before I knew it, it was the day before the arranged marriage. Long time no see. Oi-kun, I have something to talk to you about tomorrow. Is that okay? Yes, that's fine. As I was getting ready for tomorrow, I received a call from my brother-in-law. He said that he wouldn't be attending the arranged marriage, but he would be picking me up on the day. Thank you. I'm always indebted to you, brother. Don't worry about it. I'm your brother too. I want to do what I can. My sister used to be a classmate of mine in high school. So he understands our circumstances. On top of that, after entering university, he asked his sister out on a date, but apparently she initially refused, saying she wanted to focus on her work for the sake of her family. I heard that he spent several years wooing his sister, and finally gave in and they started dating. He's a kind man who treats me as an important member of the family. My sister is now able to have a happy family because of my brother-in-law. So, I have something important to talk about after the arranged meeting tomorrow. Can I have a little bit of your time? Yes, that's fine. Thank you. It seems important. His words startled me for a moment. But I quickly pulled myself together and replied to my brother-in-law. It's okay. Nothing will happen. I told myself that and decided to go to bed early to prepare for tomorrow. And then the day of the arranged meeting arrived. The venue specified by the other party was a so-called high-class ryote. It was my first time stepping into a place like this, so I entered with my sister, feeling nervous. Apparently the other party had already arrived. Sorry to keep you waiting. The room I was shown to was occupied by a man who looked like my father, sitting arrogantly and smugly, and a woman who looked like my mother, who was looking at me from top to bottom as if she were sleeping. And there was a doll-like daughter. She was probably the neighbor, Wong, who was my arranged marriage partner. Oka-san had a blank expression on her face and was looking down, so I couldn't tell what she was thinking. When I saw her face, I felt like I had seen her before. Nice to meet you. My name is Endo Aoi. This is my older sister, Nishio Iori. Thank you for taking the time to meet me today. So, I just greeted her and introduced myself. However, Wong-san's father cut me off and asked me about my educational background without even greeting me. I was confused, but since it wasn't something I had anything to hide, I answered honestly. I graduated from a famous university. Originally, I had planned to work after graduating from high school, but at the strong urging of my parents and older sister, I went to university and graduated at the top of my class. It turned out to be useful for my work, so I'm glad I went. Well, I guess I passed. As I was thinking about this, Wong-san's father said something like that. Could it be that Wong-san was judging whether I was suitable as a partner for Wong-san based on my educational background? Well, given Aoi-san's track record, it's only natural that she has a high level of education. I was a little annoyed by what the landlord's mother said. It felt as if I was being told that my work was successful because I got into a famous university. So, which university did your sister graduate from? I got a job right after graduating from high school, so when my sister answered Wang's mother's question with a smile, Wang's parents' expressions turned angry. She graduated from high school. How dare you show up even though you're a high school graduate? Oh, calm down. Your sister is doing this for me. That doesn't matter. A high school graduate must be living in poverty. Please don't come too close. It would be terrible if we caught sight of the poor. At Wang's mother's words, Wang's father took the water that was placed on the table and said, "That's terrible." Then he looked at us and grinned. The poor people at the bottom of society are out of the question. Ha, ha. The moment he said that, Wang's father threw water on us. And he laughed sarcastically, saying, "It suits you that we're being treated badly. So, didn't that help you get rid of some of the poor?" Instead of stopping Wang's father, his mother laughed along with him. Wang's parents opened their mouths to say something. "Don't you think so too?" Yes, they did. However, they fell silent when the subject was brought up. Instead, what came out was something that confirmed what Wang's parents had said. Seeing their reaction, my sister smiled. Seeing that smile, I shuddered as I sensed my sister's anger. "I will take the 20 billion contract for granted." And that's what my sister told them. Wang's parents were dumbfounded by my sister's words. But they quickly returned to their mocking laughter. Then my sister's expression disappeared. Not only me, but also Wang's parents, who had been laughing, seemed to notice the change. "Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to give you this." Saying this, my sister handed over a business card. As soon as Wang's father checked the business card, his face went blank. "WW what? You're the managing director of that big company?" And he let out a cry of surprise. "Yes, my sister is the managing director of a famous company. That company also does business with the company that my landlord's father has been running for generations. I wonder what will happen to that company if I tell our president about this encounter." Mr. Wang's father began to sweat at his sister's words. It seems that his mother also realized what was going on when she saw her husband's expression. As she watched our group with a pale face, Mr. Wang's mother looked puzzled by her sister's words, saying, "Actually, this isn't my first time meeting your wife." I also felt relieved and looked at my sister. "You seem to have forgotten about us, but in the past, your daughter and her brother were neighbors and would see each other every day." When I heard that, I finally remembered. She was my childhood friend, Prince and Sa Chan. Sa Chan, Ao Kun, it seems that she remembered too, so she said that. However, I don't think her last name was next door. The last name was your husband's fault, wasn't it? You lost everything to illness and then changed your last name when you married him. How do you know so much? I was puzzled by that too. I was wondering why my sister knew so much. My husband had been investigating you two in preparation for this arranged meeting. Apparently, my husband, my brother-in-law's father, had been doing a lot of work. My brother-in-law is the head of the company that my sister works for. He invited his older sister, who is working at another company, to start a business with him. As a result, his brother-in-law holds a high position as the president and his sister as the executive director. Although his brother-in-law is cautious as someone who is starting a business, Did he really bother investigating? While he was shaking his head inwardly, his older sister turned a cold and hateful gaze towards Saku's parents. "I'll call your husband." With that, her older sister called her brother-in-law in. "Excuse me." When his brother-in-law came in, he smiled coldly and handed them an envelope. I looked inside as well, and it turned out to be an investigation report from Saku's parents. It said that the two had been dating even before everything disappeared. That's none of your business. Besides, he's gone now too. Is that true? It was Saku who spoke up to her mother, who was yelling. "I've always suspected something was wrong, and it turns out it was true. Both of you are the worst. You should just shut up." Saku shook her body in surprise and looked down as her father yelled at her. They must have been silencing her opinions like this all along. Sa-chan looks at her parents in fear. "Yes, it's true that it's none of our business when you two did it. So we can't punish you in any way. But you have to make amends to these siblings for what happened because of that infidelity." The two of them are shocked by my brother-in-law's words. I can't understand what he's trying to say either, so I can only watch silently. You two cheated on each other while driving 20 years ago, rear-ended the car in front of you, and ran away. The two of them stiffen at those words. I was the same. Apparently, a witness rushed to the scene that day and tried to rescue at least one person before the ambulance arrived. At that time, my mother, who was still conscious, apparently muttered the surname of my then wife. The witness testified about that as well, but at the time it was a common surname, so they didn't investigate it in depth. Apparently, their relatives didn't want the investigation to go that far, so they didn't investigate any further. However, people who knew their parents, including their father, who was a police officer at the time, were proud of it. Many people thought the two of them were kind and gentle. It's only natural that he would be angry since the operation was terminated halfway through. Apparently, his brother-in-law's father couldn't accept the termination of the operation and tried to investigate it personally. However, that's when he found out about the house next door. At the time, the house next door was a famous wealthy family, and no one in the local area would dare oppose them. My brother-in-law's father was also pressured and couldn't investigate. Other acquaintances of my parents had no choice but to keep quiet even if they knew who the culprit was in order to protect their own families. That's why I decided to have more influence than the neighbors and get them to find out. My brother-in-law spoke in a strong tone. In fact, it took 20 years, but the company in question has gained a lot of influence. After being destroyed by Saku's Kiri grandfather, a pitcher from Sendai who put pressure on the neighbors have been steadily declining. It's likely that Saku's grandfather-in-law was the only one who had the talent to be a wealthy man, and Saku's father-in-law, who had an affair with a married man, didn't have that talent. If we were to terminate the 20 billion yen contract with your company in that state, it would be a disaster. The two of them trembled as their brother-in-law and sister-in-law gave them cold stares. I'm sure they gave me the same cold stares. How dare you take our parents away from us? I will never forgive you. My sister told me that and urged me to leave. I stood up and looked at Saku-chan. Saku-chan, do you want to come with me? Huh? She looked down and looked up, confused. I held out my hand to her and she took it, still confused. Then I got into the car driven by my brother-in-law and sat in the back seat and listened to Saku-chan's story. I've been denied all this time. It was my in-laws' fault that Saku-chan became like this. I knew that Saku-chan's Zip was a kind person and she felt loved. But everything changed when her mother remarried that man. The two of them neglected Saku-chan and took out their frustrations about the business's failures on her. I had thought about getting away from them, but apparently my father-in-law couldn't have children. That's why he never let her be free. When the fake was around, there was always guards around to watch over me. Because of that, I couldn't escape for a long time, and I gradually lost the will to run away. So until recently, I was working at that person's company, but suddenly I was dragged away for an arranged marriage. I was yelled at every day, and even before the arranged marriage was decided, he sometimes even hit me. I patted Sa-chan's back as she told me this while crying. I felt angry when I heard her story. Of course, she was my parents' enemy. But another reason for my anger was that she had been causing my first love so much pain. Sa-chan, can I have a moment? As I was quietly getting angry, my sister, who was sitting in the passenger seat, turned to her. We have no intention of showing any mercy to those two. That's fine. Yes. Go ahead and do it. Sa-chan nodded firmly at my sister's words. The four of us went to visit the grave. There, my sister and I promised our parents that we would definitely get revenge. My brother-in-law promised to avenge his wrongdoing, and Sa-chan kept apologizing over and over again. After that, she decided to stay with me for the time being. Are you sure? I'm fine. And I can trust our security. Even though I'm a popular novel, I've been featured on TV many times. Saku's parents must have seen one of those things when they set their sights on me. And I live in a high-security apartment where fans and troublesome relatives can't easily get in. There are a fair number of rooms, so it's no problem if she's alone. Well, I'm going to concentrate on writing from now on, so Saku can do whatever she wants. And so we got started. Apparently, my sister and her husband used their connections to tell everyone about this story. Of course, they terminated the contract. And I immediately used it as the subject of my novel. I had originally been stuck for ideas for my next novel, so in a way, the timing was good. I wrote it in no time, and it spread around the world as the past of a popular novelist, and it became a huge hit, and soon there was talk of me becoming a filmmaker. As a result, the neighbors fell out of love in no time. The blue rice is ready. Oh, thank you, Saku. Even after things had calmed down somewhat, Saku was still at our house. There were some attempts to find out about her because of this commotion, but she also posted on social media that she didn't want anyone to look into her because she was a victim. So there were no more attempts to find her, but I'm still keeping an eye on her just in case. It seems that those two were also desperately looking for Sa-chan to ask for help, but it seems that they were doing whatever they wanted at the company. Apparently, they were sued by their employees all at once when they were weakened, and they had no choice but to run away in the middle of the night. Sorry to bother you when you're busy. No, that's fine. Then my older sister and her husband came to visit. For some reason, they brought a lawyer with them. This lawyer was the one hired by my mother's grandfathers. When I heard what their lawyer had to say, I was so shocked that my grandparents, who were supposed to hate us, were going to give their inheritance to my older sister and me. To be honest, I couldn't believe it. Apparently, my father and his wife were on their way to my grandfather's house that day. Huh? They had always opposed the marriage of our biological daughter, and had been estranged from her until then, but after being apart for over 10 years, I was finally able to forgive them. So, since my sister's birthday was approaching, we were planning a surprise reunion after over 10 years, and on the way to see our grandparents, we got into an accident. Because of that, we were filled with guilt that we hadn't forgiven them sooner, and we couldn't accept the reality that we had lost our beloved daughter, so we couldn't even look them in the eye. So when they gave us the inheritance, they couldn't help but think of our mother, and it made us sad. So even though they couldn't meet, they were thinking about us, their mother's children. My sister apparently knew about my grandparents' feelings. In fact, the only reason my parents were able to live a normal life after taking us in was because of my grandparents' support. However, my parents apparently tried to save money by saying that it was my siblings' money and not their own, and among the strange items, there was also surveillance camera footage of my father's car heading to the crime scene and the perpetrator's car chasing after it on the highway. I don't know where they got it, but they apparently kept it as evidence. It was because of that footage that we were able to take action in earnest. After my sister said that, the lawyer handed me a letter. It contained my grandparents' thoughts, written specifically for me. They also gave my sister a letter, so it seems they each wrote something for her. The contents of the letter were an apology to my parents. It also said that they still thought of us as their precious grandchildren. It also showed Sofu's feelings, saying that he had always bought and read my novels and looked forward to my new works. If only he had told me sooner, I wouldn't have misunderstood for 20 years. Learning my grandparents' true feelings, I couldn't help but burst into tears. Sa-chan patted my back just as I had that day. My sister was also in tears, and was being hugged by my brother-in-law. The lawyer watched over us kindly. It must have been tough. But well done. As expected of our children. I reported the incident to my parents. Moving overseas was a dream that they had given up on when they adopted us. That dream was finally realized recently, thanks to my siblings and me being successful and supporting them. Yeah, it was tough. So, can I go there with my sisters next time? Yes, of course. I plan to go with my sisters next time and talk to them about my grandparents. There was also a letter addressed to them among the strange items, so I plan to give it to them. After finishing the phone call with my parents, I head to Saku-chan's place. I still live with her. Seeing her doing the housework for me brings back memories from when I was little. Mom told me that there's a cherry blossom in your name, Hoka-chan. Yeah, that's right. Can I call you Saku-chan? I want to call you that because you're cute like a cherry blossom, Mom. Even though she's still young, I can't help but smile wryly, thinking how I could say something so embarrassing. When we first met, she had a gloomy look on her face, but now she's smiling as beautifully as she did when she was a child. I'm going to tell her how I feel today. I have something to tell you, Saku-chan. What's wrong? I told her how I felt as she smiled gently.